this episode of That Kingsville Podcast. We're backtracking a little bit because of the ice storm that we had in March.
February.
So, we have Constable JJ Lyman from the OPP in studio talking an award that he was given. And
6 weeks ago.
Yeah, 6 weeks. It happened. It was probably more than that, but we found out about it 6 weeks ago.
Right.
And Andrew Vandale joins us for a KDHS school update. We have an official KDHS correspondent.
He's a minister.
Minister of Assemblies. And finally, Doug Plumb, chair for the Kingsville Highland Games Committee, joins us talking about the new changes to location and the overall aspects of this year's Highland Games in June. So stay tuned. Big episode, folks.
So Scottish fashion discussion.
I'm not even going to do the accent because I'll just...
No, don't.
No, I won't.
No.
I killed it.
Thanks. All that and more. Oh, geez, and Easter Bunny controversy. I gotta tease that too. Stick around. We got lots to talk about on this episode of That Kingsville Podcast. That Kingsville Podcast is brought to you by Murray Insurance. Are you frustrated with the current level of service you get from your insurance company, or concerned that some of your most important assets aren't covered by the way they should be? Whether it's your car, your house, your income, or your business, ask the professionals at Murray Insurance for a full review and get the peace of mind you need with your insurance. Call Murray Insurance today, 519-733-2331, or email service@murrayinsurance.ca. Today, for great service, friendly local staff, guaranteed same-day callback, and claims concierge. Concierge. It sounds like we're at a really fancy hotel.
Yeah. What was that phone number again?
519-733-2331. Thank you.
What was that?
Do you want me to do the radio voice? Because I'll do it again.
You got to do it three times.
519-733-2331.
They don't remember it if you don't say it three times.
Is that an old radio?
That's the thing, yeah.
Say it three times.
Yeah. 519-733-2331.
That's 4. Now it's ingrained in their minds forever. Sorry, Steve. I got a hell of an eye roll. Thank you, Murray Insurance, for supporting That Kingsville Podcast.
I'm entertained.
Welcome to That Kingsville Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Hunt. Kevin Black. Steve Ianson's special guest this week, OPP Constable JJ Lyman. Welcome to That Kingsville Podcast.
Thank you very much.
JJ, you were making news here, and actually, I gotta pause for a second. This episode we intended to record about 6 weeks ago,
yes.
When we had the gigantic ice storm. So, the subject matter is just a little stale, but we appreciate.
We were gonna come in and then realize that Gary's studio had no power.
Yeah, no,
there's a giant tree down.
Yeah, so we wanted to make sure that we had this interview and this episode. So, thanks for making arrangements to come back in and talk today. So, you were making news though. About a month and a half ago, you received an award. Can you tell us about what that award was?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to receive an award through the Canadian Safe Boating Council. So that's basically a big national agency, and I got nominated from my headquarters in Aurelia, and so I received an award for Marine Professional of the Year for all of Canada. So that was quite an accomplishment.
Congratulations!
I was pretty honored just to be nominated, but then to actually get the award was a whole nother level.
So your role here in the OPP detachment, what position do you serve here?
Right. So I'm a provincial constable, but what I do is I have a unique facet in the organization. And what I do is I specialize in marine policing. So both in the United States, a little bit, I dabble there, but mostly in Ontario. And I train actual police officers across Ontario on how to operate both smaller vessels, which we classify as skiffs, 24 feet and below, as well as the larger twin engine 30-footer, 32-foot class as well. So I go around the province of Ontario teaching police officers how to boat safely, how to enforce legislation on the water, and I deal with like life jackets and alcohol and things like that on the water.
I grew up in not too far away, actually, from Aurelia, and I know boating is very different on the lakes up around Cottage Country than it is, on the Great Lakes. So it must be challenge. No, I wouldn't say challenging, but I'm sure that it's a different message when you're talking to OPP constables that are in Essex, Chent. That's what they should
That's
call
a new county.
Yeah, Chatham. Yeah,
Chent.
it's a great
Chent.
abbreviation.
Or any of those that are on any of the larger lakes, and then if you're talking to someone that's in like Kawartha or Muskoka, right?
Correct. So even in Northern Ontario, like I just did a course in Kenora. So you look at something like that, for instance, it's even more extreme where you don't have the resources, small bodies of water, little inland lakes with no navigation whatsoever. And then you look at one down here, like Lake Erie, for instance, with the Great Lakes system, very large body of water. You get to the Detroit River, all the aids to navigation, very different in terms of a captain's perspective. You have to know your markers so you don't hit the shoal, right, on your way to an emergency or a call for service. So it really is well put. Like you look at Muskoka, you look at Kawartha Lakes, you look at Simcoe, you look at Great Lakes watershed, a whole array of different vessels and different policing fashions, right?
So the award, the nomination, did you find out you were nominated prior to winning, or was this a complete shock when the news came?
So I knew I'd been nominated. My Sergeant Dave Moffat in Aurelia, he's the Provincial Marine Coordinator for all of Ontario, and he had called me and kind of given me the heads up that he had put my name in. So I was pretty honored just for that alone. And then I didn't know until I was actually at deer camp and my phone went off and it was this Ottawa number. It kept calling and it wouldn't stop.
Dr. Cleaning.
So I thought it was, just like anybody, I thought it was a telemarketer.
Yeah.
And then when I picked it up, it was the chair of the Canadian Safe Boating Council, and she had a brief conversation and basically explained that I had won the award and I was going to Toronto. So I got to go to the National Yacht Club in downtown Toronto and have a beautiful gala. It was a beautiful event, and it'll be something I'll remember the rest of my life for my wife and I. It was nice.
Yeah,
I'm glad he picked up, because I think one more try and they would have given it to the next guy.
Yeah, exactly.
So who else? Sorry, Dave. Who else would be nominated for that?
You know, I don't know the other nominees for that award this year. That wasn't revealed, but I do know all the other award recipients. That was revealed to me. So you had everything from like a rescue of the year out in British Columbia, where 2 kayaks were utilized to pull a person out of the water that was in distress. You had the most visible life jacket award that went to Princecraft Boats out of Quebec. There's doctors in Northwest Territories. There's one coast all the way to the other. It was quite an event just to sit back and enjoy. Unfortunately, I was nervous because I had to talk, but I didn't quite enjoy it until my speech was over. Then I could take a deep breath because I was so nervous in such a big room. But it was quite an event.
I'm sure it'd be RCMP, Coast Guard, military, like any of those.
Yeah, York Regional Police were there, all kinds of different agencies across the board. Yep. Even had people in the marine industry, such as Mustang inflatables, like that I wear every day. There was reps from Mustang. There was people there from different agencies. So it was quite interesting to rub elbows with those people and get to know them.
We're sharing the our home waterway with Lake Erie and Lake St. Clair and Lake Huron, bordering the U.S. How often do you have to liaise with their associated aquatic police and Coast Guard forces?
Great question. So every day.
Every day?
So on a daily basis, I'm working with them. So the waterways, as much as they have a line down the middle in terms of the boundary between Canada and the United States, if someone drowns, unfortunately, there's nothing stopping it from moving from one body to the other in terms of like Canada, the U.S., and things like that. So we are always sharing information. Unfortunately, smuggling is still a thing today. So we have guns, people, money, things like that getting moved across the border. So we work with them on a regular basis. And on that note, I also work on the RCMP boats and with the United States Coast Guard on a shipwrighter program. People don't really know much about it, but it combats criminality on the water. So I do that as well. So there'll be days that I'll be on an RCMP boat. There'll be days I'll be on an OPP boat. So I'll be bouncing back and forth, U.S. Coast Guard and whatnot. So,
I mean, those of us who know or are good friends with police officers or related to police officers know the risks involved. This is a career you chose. Is it something that you always wanted to do? And in line with that, did you grow up on the water and always have a focus on sort of steering yourself to the Marine unit?
What a well-worded, great question. So at the age of 5 years old, I stood at my parents' yard at the time, and I can remember it vividly watching the blue-colored limestone go down the coast with the OPP. Back in the day, they had baby blue shirts and the shoulder flashes, and I said, I want to do that. And I was only about 4 or 5 years old, and it still is in my heart. I still love doing what I do. And so I did grow up with boats. I thought everybody had boats. I thought that was just normal. And it wasn't until later in life you realize how rare of an opportunity it was to grow up. So I grew up along the shores of Lake Erie, so I've been quite familiar with that body of water and the Cedar Creek. So I always wanted to do that, and it just kind of worked out in my favor. And I'm blessed to have the career that I got so far.
I remember a few years ago, I had my kids on, we were out at Cedar Island for, I don't know if I just brought them out for a cop camp to see what was going on, but you just happened to be there and you invited them on the boat, and, you know, they still remember that. They still enjoyed that. They think about it. And I'm wondering, you know, your kids are getting older, and I'm sure, you know, when you're 6 or 7, you're like, oh, my dad's the, you know, but is there still a sense of, I don't want to say pride, but like, what did they think of the award? Did they fully grasp what you've accomplished with this, having grown up seeing you know, do your job day to day?
Yeah, you know, like they're somewhat confused a little bit with it all. And even like the attention with it. I mean, my goodness, so many people everywhere you go. In the grocery store, you have teachers that used to teach you. You obviously have your immediate family and friends that you're happy. They acknowledge it, and you know, in the first place, you don't do this kind of work to get acknowledged. It's nice to be acknowledged, but there's so many people behind that award, right? And go back to that day with your kids. That's just what we like to do. Like, I love showing people what I do. I love showing off our boats. I'm blessed to have the OPP give me almost $1 million boat that is an amazing piece of equipment when used properly. And we have the opportunities to save people's lives, not only in rescue situations when the Coast Guard aren't in the right position at the right time, and we might be fortunate enough to do that, but also by educating and enforcing. I like to educate people, and by doing programs like this, you can get through some of the legislative confusion. You need life jackets on the water, and like over the past 12 years, 87% of our fatalities have been without life jackets. So it's that simple. You got to have life jackets on your boat all the time. So when I do outreach programs, I just love interacting with anybody, with the members of the public. Any questions, you're always more than welcome to reach out to a detachment or get a hold of us at Manning Road. And one of myself or my full-time marine operators will be able to answer any legislative questions when it comes to the water, because often it gets overlooked. They grab the cooler and they grab this and they grab that, but they forget all the safety requirements and laws.
And I guess we're getting into the pretty serious boating season. Obviously, after today, I don't think there's any rain in the forecast for the next week, at least as of right now.
Warm temperatures, which
and temperatures are warming up. So
no ice safety concerns this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So, I mean, a lot of factors come into play. People want to be outside more. They want to have a cocktail while they're outside and everything else. And, you know, I've seen the PSAs as far as the the drinking and boating and stuff like that. So this is an opportunity for you, I guess, to kind of talk about what the goals are from you at the start of the season and what the expectations are, obviously, for safe boaters.
Right. So first and foremost, right now, let's talk about today. I was on the Detroit River on a boat today, and I'll tell you right now, it seems fairly comfortable when we walk out this door, and it's fairly comfortable in temperature. And the second you get to the lake or the Detroit River like I was today, you'll notice the temperature drops dramatically. And the reason why that is the land and the water heat and cool at different levels. So the water is considerably cold right now. If you put your hand in it, it's freezing cold. As much as it's t-shirt weather here, out there you fall in that water. Hypothermia is going to get you in no time. So at the start of our season, to answer that question, is we want to really enforce, make sure you have floater suits, things like that, proper equipment to help you in those situations. Moving forward throughout the rest of the season, we start to hit May 2-4 and everybody starts to drink. Everybody wants to party. Like, party at home, party on at your cottages, whatever it might be, but don't drink alcohol on our waterways, please. Like, water on the water and beer on the pier is the big slogan. So always have life jackets. Don't drink on your boat if you can. That's the big one. And overall, like, boating safety at that point.
Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions about the legality around boating, right? You know, we all had, the uncle or the dad was like, hey, we're going out on the fishing boat, packing some suds and whatnot. But, you have to have an operator's license. Like, you need to have certain requirements based on the type of your craft that you're driving, even jet skis. So that's a big problem that we have, that just people aren't aware, but you know, is there safety things and concerns for like kayakers or small craft that we see, because you know, we've got a big body of water here?
Yeah, so all over the map with that one. I'll start with the smaller ones. So the kayaks and the canoes, all those smaller crafts, what we see is a theme, and our theme is this. It's a false sense of security. They get in the water and they think it's great. They're paddling around. And they don't realize they're in water over their head quickly. And all of a sudden the wind changes. And I could tell endless stories of situations over the years of my career where we've come across a canoe, for instance, paddling towards shore, but it's an offshore breeze and the poor little guy or girl is actually going the other way. And you pull up, and as you look down from the high boat that we're in, I can see right in there, and the poor little bugger doesn't even have a life jacket. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the small crafts, really recognize the limitations. And pool toys and things like that, it happens so fast. They're just playing on a little air mattress, and all of a sudden they're gone.
Peely Island.
Yeah, it happens all the time. And then when you get to the personal watercrafts, or even any vessel, start with a small vessel. As soon as you put a motor on it, you need an operator card. It doesn't matter if it's a trolling motor on a canoe or a little 2-horse on a 12-foot aluminum. Mm-hmm. You need an operator card at that point. And then you get into your safety requirements, and those change. But for the most part, every boat at that point needs a buoyant heaving line, a watertight flashlight. You need your bailer. You need a whistle. You need those requirements that are in each class. And as you get bigger, when you get in inboard fuel tanks, you need fire extinguishers. The bigger the boat, you need 2 fire extinguishers, on it goes. So the personal watercraft, back to that, is a unique one too, because there's an age restriction on that. And you can't operate any personal watercraft unless you're 16 years old. So there's an age horsepower requirement there. And we see that all too often. Mm-hmm. A lot of the younger kids, and we can't give the kids tickets, but we can actually charge the operators, like the owner of that machine, for permitting. But I mean, again, education is more important than enforcement, right? The more word we can get out, the better we can be.
It's funny hearing you explain that. It's such small things that you would deal with. And then I remember one of the most memorable assignments I ever had as a reporter was when they did the mock exercise with the G-Mon out in the lake. Mm-hmm. and they had all of the agencies were responding. And standing there and seeing Coast Guard from the U.S. coming, and seeing the OPP boat was the second boat there. Mm-hmm. Coast Guard from Marblehead was first, and then the OPP boat, and then basically everyone else like about 20 minutes later.
They had to put it in. Slip.
They kind of knew it was happening. They thought they would have thought they would have been better prepared. But anyway, so it's just seeing the response. At the helicopter actually came with like the emergency swimmer, mm-hmm. like jumping off.
You could tell he was
the rescue diver.
Oh, it was so cool. Yeah, the rescue diver. But it's you being an officer in the water and having to concern yourself with whether or not the canoe has a life jacket, and always having to be ready in case the G-Mon catches fire is a pretty.
We don't worry about the G-Mon anymore.
Yeah, I guess.
The Islander.
Pick an Islander.
Yeah.
But even the commercial aspect, like freighters and things, people don't think of that stuff. We have a lot of commercial fishing, a lot of those larger boats. Like there's a whole array of vessels that transient through here from international waters. Like. It's amazing what you actually can see if you go on Ship Finder on your phone and things like that. You can watch all these vessels transiting through. It's amazing.
I love Ship Finder.
So do you cover each day? Is it a different area, or do you have, you're on Detroit River Lake Erie today, and you've got from here to a certain point?
Right. So I try to visit all the bodies of water equally. So Lake St. Clair, the Detroit River, and the western basin of Lake Erie. We pretty much cover from Wheatley all the way around up to Lighthouse Cove in this county. It's not limited there. I can run down to Erie if something happens down there or something like that. Wherever they assign that boat to go is typically where that crew is going to be going. So sometimes it's out of our element. We get deployed to other areas. But in a nutshell, it goes by wind. So I look at the winds most days, and if it's a southwest wind, Lake Erie is going to be pretty rough. Vessel traffic will be pretty minimal. Now I go up the Detroit River, I'm going to get some boats, but when I get up to Lake St. Clair, it's an offshore breeze, and I'll get a lot of boats there. And then vice versa. If there's a north wind, I'll focus predominantly on Lake Erie. Lake St. Clair is too rough. So any day I can police the Detroit River most times. There's very few days that I can't. But there's always a ton of boats in the river. Today alone, there was hundreds of boats fishing, even with the storms inbound this afternoon.
Crazy.
So there's always stuff happening. And we're just trying to prevent any more unfortunate stories, because we have so many to tell that over the years we've seen. And we don't want any more drownings. We don't want any more boat crashes. We're trying to keep everyone safe. Enjoy the waterways. Don't think I don't want anybody to. I want everybody to enjoy the waters, but you got to enjoy the waterways safely. So
yeah, that's one of the things that we all take for granted. Like growing up here or near bodies of water, like Aurelia and whatnot, you've always been on a boat, or somebody, like I said, your uncle has a boat and whatnot, and you kind of take it for granted. But it's more so that the understanding of, you always have to refresh your knowledge about what the safety aspects are, so that we don't have to make one of those unfortunate calls. But on the opposite end of that, I'm sure that there's some good incidents and some notables that you've had throughout your career where something wasn't notable in tragedy, but it was in another aspect. Do you have any things that come to mind offhand?
Oh, yeah, I have several of those stories. Like we've been blessed to have a couple of good stories, not all bad, but one that comes to mind is the double rescue up in Lake St. Clair in 2014, where the jet ski went out around this time of day, or a year I should say. It was in April near Easter, and the two gentlemen didn't recognize the temperature of the water as being a threat, and they wanted to go for a ride down the coast. And they jumped on their Sea-Doo and down they went. Well, it had bad gas from the year before. And it ultimately stalled out, and it was an offshore breeze. And we get back to that again, and they slowly drift out further and further. And thank goodness a citizen saw them and called. Now, there was ice on the lake the day before, so the Coast Guard wasn't even in the water at that point. So we literally had to scramble to get our boat. And I learned that day you can trailer a lot faster than you think you can down the 401. We got there, we launched quick, we got in the water, everything worked well, and we got out there. We found the jet ski overturned and the two gentlemen in the water barely alive, and we pulled them in, and they ultimately both made it. But I mean, you want to avoid those stories. Like, it was just a foolish decision to go out. They should have had floater suits if they were going to go out, and they just didn't recognize the dangers of an offshore breeze. And by the time they did, they didn't have their equipment ready. Like, you got to have all that safety equipment ready. People get so excited when they buy new boats, and then I look and I'm like, where's your anchor? Where's your life jackets? And so often, off duty, they look at me and they're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, you have this beautiful boat. You got to have the safety stuff ready. Like, what if something happens, right? And so it all starts kind of like before. And with that being said, have somebody know where you're at. Hey, Dave, I'm going to be back at 11 o'clock this morning fishing. I've got Steve with me, and that's what we're going to do. So if I'm not back at 11 o'clock, something's wrong, right? And then if you start calling my phone, something's wrong. And having that pre-plan and someone on land that is apprised of your decision-making really is beneficial in the long run, right? So...
yeah, the lakes around here, as you mentioned, they change very quickly. And, even if you have good intentions, wind changes, conditions go from pleasant and happy to 2, 3, 4, 5 foot swells, and then you're in trouble. Like, I don't know how many times taking the boat from Peely back to mainland, and wind changes direction, and it's a lot more of a thrilling ride. So are there any other any other factors or training or things that you would recommend that somebody who maybe is fresh to watercrafts or could use as a refresher that since we're getting into the season now, that maybe they should consult?
It's amazing what's on the internet, believe it or not. And Marine First is one of the programs that every one of our officers about 3-4 years ago it was a prerequisite to our Marine program. And anybody can go on. My children have gone on and done it. It's not like extremely difficult by any means. And it goes through the different safety aspects. There's so many apps on the internet that you could sit there on a rainy day and familiarize yourself with safety things regarding the water. Again, resources. You can go online, you can print off the boat safety guide yourself. It has all the details in there. They're digital now. You can go to your local Coast Guard base or the OPP station. We'd be glad to help you with any marine related questions. But the most important one to answer you is to get a boating card.
Yeah. Don't
just go out and operate a boat, because those cards, you got to pay attention and do them. Don't don't run 2 windows on your Google and cheat. Yeah, don't do that. Actually sit down and put the best effort into it. And the more you put in, the better it works out in the long run,
It
right?
takes like 5 hours if you really go through it.
Yeah, it's a rainy day.
It's like $40, $45.
Yeah.
No, it's on my list of things to do this year. Just because I don't know if I'm going to have to take over, the helm of a craft if somebody else is rendered, not capable.
You ever end up on a freighter?
But you laugh, like there's been instances
happens.
where people have had heart attacks and then I get there and unfortunately the family members are there and nobody knows how to drive the boat.
Right.
And we come across these things, not daily, but throughout my career, there's been multiple times where medical emergencies have happened and the captain is the one that has the problem and no one knows how to drive the boat. And if they could have got to shore, maybe the result could have been, a little bit more beneficial. Who knows? But yeah.
No, like you said, we are coming into it. This is, it's deceiving right now, but everybody's got the resources at their disposal. You've absolutely, congratulations on being part of our community, but not only that, but serving the entire area for what it is that you bring with regards to your policing and safety and training capability to make sure that our waterways are safe or as safe as you can help make them. So,
well, I have to say thanks to my immediate family because from my mom and dad to my in-laws to my wife, without the support of all of them, there's no way I could do this job. So when I'm traveling, when I'm working, we're on the water. If something happens, I can't just come in. Like sometimes I'm in Lighthouse Cove and my truck's in Amherstburg, right? And so it really is a dedicated thing. Like once you're in a unit somewhat like this, it's very unique in that. So you got to have a support system. So without them, I wouldn't even be here today. So they deserve equally as much recognition for that award as me. So
nice.
Well said.
Well, JJ, again, thank you for taking the time tonight to share your story and your advice and lessons about water safety in our community. Again, being a marine area surrounded by 3 big bodies of water that can, up and get you real quick if you're not paying attention. So, yeah, thanks for coming on the show with us tonight. And hopefully everybody follows his advice and goes and gets an operating card and, is better prepared. So, thanks again.
for sure. Please wear your life jackets. Thanks so much to all of you for having me.
No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That Kingsville Podcast is also supported by Kingsville Brewery. We've got another month of amazing events lined up at the Kingsville Brewery Tap House in downtown Kingsville. Tap House trivia every Thursday, live music every Friday and Saturday. All the way through the month, go to Facebook and the Kingsville Brewery Tap House page for their list of events. For instance, what do we got? What's the dates this weekend? It's the 13th?
That's next week.
That's next week. Yeah. So,
Week.
Paul Longden, 7:30, April 8th. Ooh, at the Brewery Tap House. Friday the 14th, Ron Leary, 7:30. And April 15th, Clinton Anderson. So, yeah. Between that, they got a couple of new beer releases at the Tap House. Yuzu Saison and a Hazy IPA. So to add to their standard fare, you got new selections. Go give them a taste.
Love it.
Thank you, Kingsville Brewery, for sponsoring That Kingsville Podcast.
I like just saying yuzu.
Yuzu. Much like sriracha, like yuzus, I've seen a lot of yuzu everywhere. Or acai a few years ago. Joining us on That Kingsville Podcast, we've got Andrew Van Dale, grade 12 student from KDHS. He is the Minister of Assemblies.
Oh, yes.
Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Awesome to be here.
So, Steve, you helped arrange this.
Yeah, it was just, you guys had mentioned having an opportunity for someone from Kingsville District High School to come on and talk about what was going on. And
you happen to have a wife that teaches there as well, so it's...
Yes, I do.
It's handy.
Yeah. And you coach there, so...
I actually coach Andrew. Andrew's on the soccer team.
Oh, perfect. Well,
Yeah, he had a great game yesterday. Yeah.
Well, well, exactly. A good lead in. What's happening with sports at KDHS?
Oh, sports at KD. We've actually, like, looking back at past sports, actually, I do have a list here. So looking at what we have for making it to OFSA, our senior girls for basketball, senior boys for volleyball, our golf team, swimming team, our junior girls in cross country, they've all made it to OFSA and done relatively well. We have SWASA winners in junior girls basketball as well, and then cross country, we won WEXA for that. So we're hoping for the best for our soccer teams, as well as softball, baseball, and track, which that's all like kind of starting up right now. So I'd say KD, like the Cavs have been going really strong for sports this year, which I can't wait to watch what our soccer team's going to do too, because we got a pretty good set of kids.
I'd agree, but I'm biased. And then within the school itself, trips or events, and what else is going on?
So one of the things that I can really advocate for is Camp Celtic. So that's normally offered to the grade 9s and then any grade 12 and 11 students in like leadership courses, mainly fitness leadership. So it's what I believe a 3-night, 4-day trip up to the Bruce Peninsula, and I've been twice. I went in grade 9 and just went in grade 12 in September. You go up there, you have no electronics, you're disconnected from like the outside world, which kind of really like immerses you in that whole thing, which is awesome. You go up with a bunch of counselors that are awesome. You have a bunch of activities. You travel up to the Bruce Peninsula National Park, and you really just have like a good time and make a lot of good like lifelong friendships. Like some of the guys that I met and girls up in grade 9 are still some of my close friends today, and I had not known them because I was just coming in from a Catholic school, meeting all the public school kids. So it was definitely a good little adjustment. And then we have obviously like our Europe trip in the summer. I just got back from our Quebec trip as well, which I believe it was like beginning of March. And that was really fun to immerse yourself in like their culture and go and see a bunch of stuff. The food was absolutely amazing. And then I believe we have another Bruce Trail camping trip coming up next month or in a month or two, which I just heard about. You go up to the Bruce Peninsula, like in Tobermory, go camping. You got a bunch of opportunities like at the high school for just going on trips and stuff. So it really makes high school better.
Just to touch back on Camp Celtic real quick, as a grade 9 coming in, a lot of grade 9s come in, they're nervous. They, like you said, you don't always know a lot of people. What does a trip like that do for the self-confidence and moving forward?
Oh, it's amazing. Like I remember going into grade 9, and normally like the public school kids, like it's gonna be a cliche, but they dominate relatively, right? Like they all like Jack Minor, KPS, even like Harrow Public, like they all know each other from public school events. And I was coming from St. John de Brébeuf, and I didn't really know a fair amount of kids, only the ones from my school, and sure, like other kids that I played sports with, like whether it be like soccer, baseball, or hockey from the other schools. But with not having your phone on you and just being in randomized cabins, going for randomized activities with a bunch of random people, you really like build that friendship, build that connection. And like the bus ride up, you don't really hear much talking between people until like the last hour when everyone's getting excited. And then the bus ride back, everyone's talking, everybody has these like tight relationships, and it's just an awesome thing to see. And I saw it too, even in like when I was up there in grade 12, like this September, I saw the grade 9 slowly progress the same way that I did when I was gone to Celtic in grade 9. Like it's definitely, and it's an amazing experience, and I recommended it during the grade 8 night and grade 9 nights as well that I hosted with student council. I recommended it to all the kids coming into high school and the kids that were in grade 9. I told them, take the chance. It's not scary. I know that it might feel like it, but it'll help you throughout high school like tenfold.
Well, my daughter went this past September, so you obviously got through to some of the kids, but
oh yeah,
it was a group of her and a bunch of her girlfriends, and they all went up and they rave about it. They're still wearing the hoodies and the t-shirts, and they want.
Oh yeah.
Like well, you're absolutely right. Your description and from her interpretation, it was life-changing. So
it's awesome.
What's coming up?
Coming up, so we just finished a thing called like the Bridge fundraiser. So it wasn't necessarily run by student council, but it was put on by like our social justice club, and it was basically going to the community, reaching out, whether it be through like online marketing or just going like in any way, shape, or form. We had the community donate a bunch, like hundreds of dollars, to make up these raffle baskets, and then they donated toiletries, like non-perishable food items, comfort items, anything like that, which was really cool, and that did really, really, really well. I wasn't able to be a part of that because I was gone on vacation, but I heard that it did really well. Coming up, though, one thing that I am really excited for is our Relay for Life. So we're pairing up with like Leamington High School, and I believe that's on May 24th. So like it's a bunch of leadership students, student council students, and anyone that chooses to sign up. We're getting 100 kids from Kingsville High School and 100 kids from Leamington, and we're all traveling over to their school. And so obviously Relay for Life for cancer research and all that. We're going around, keep the baton going around the track, playing like minute to win it games. We have speakers, we have events, we have this and that. And that's going to be really exciting because we've had it planned, I believe, since December, like 2022. So we're really excited for that, really hyped with that. And both of our student councils are close, and we've never really had that much of a collaboration. But this year, we've all kind of like used that relationship and that good little bond that we have with the other school to make something happen. That's really like I'm looking forward to it.
What's the social justice committee?
So there's like student council, which will run a lot of different things in the school, but the social justice club, they mainly focus on advocating for different causes, whether it be for like Black History Month. They did a bunch of things. We had announcements written up on different, let's say, Black artists, athletes. Like I know that we had, I actually wrote one on, I think, Muhammad Ali, which was cool because they asked me to just write one up for them really quickly. But then they have things like Pride Month, Black History Month, all that stuff. And they really try to like reimburse that and get the school like into a proper diverse place. And I mean, especially if we can get that like instituted in the KD now, then it's obviously going to be a much safer place to be like for a bunch of students and the whole student body as a whole once we move into the bigger school, if we already have that foundation.
Yeah, that's a cool thing. We never had.
We didn't have that.
I had never heard of that.
Yeah, it's definitely it's different now.
Well, Andrew, I know you're on break from work, but can we call you our official correspondent for KDHS?
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Sure, go for it, 100%.
We got our first correspondent.
Awesome.
There we go.
Awesome.
So every 2 weeks, we'll be checking in with correspondent Andrew.
Andrew, all right, Andrew.
All right,
To your resume.
Andrew Van Dale, KDHS, Minister of Assemblies. Thank you for taking your time tonight and talking to us and bringing us up to speed.
Awesome to help, awesome to be here. Thank you guys so much.
Talk to you later.
Take care.
All right, talk to you later. Take care.
Joining us on That Kingsville Podcast, the chair of the Kingsville Highland Games Committee, Doug Plumb. Doug, thanks for taking time out of your busy night to speak with us.
It's my pleasure, Dave. How are you tonight?
Oh, we are just churning. Again, we had to reschedule this because of the ice storm, and we're thanking you for taking the time out, even though we're a little bit delayed from when we originally wanted to do this recording. So thanks for coming on with us tonight.
Sure.
So Highland Games did make some pretty significant news about 6 weeks ago that the location for this year's games was moving out of Lakeside Park to Jack Miner's campus out on the third concession. So this is primarily the reason why we wanted to reach out and discuss what that was going to look like for this year's event. So
for this year's event? You're right. We decided that we were going to change our location, and Jack Miner's, we took a ride out there and just thought that was a fantastic place to have the Highland Games. It's, believe it or not, it's a much larger area, and the area itself, there's more usable space. And there's a lot of things too. As far as parking, there's tons of parking out there. The area does not need to be fenced because it's already fenced. There's a lot of outbuildings, which eliminate a lot of the cost involved with tents and that sort of thing. Lots of area for the 5K run. It was just a perfect match for us. Not only that, but we branded ourselves with the Celtic Goose and Flock to Kingsville and all that sort of stuff. And it was just like, here it is. Here's an event that just fits perfectly with the bird sanctuary.
So, Doug, it was a logistics thing and not a town committee thing?
Well, we had full support of council. They were fantastic. We did run into quite a few bumps in the road with management. With running an event that size, there was a few struggles, and it just became clear to us after last year that changes had to be made. So we were in the process of looking at our options. It was either that or the Kingsville Games might just have to be put on hold for another couple of years. So things worked out, and here we're at it. We're going to go for Jack Miner's this year.
And I know we're excited to talk about the new layout for the festival as well. Just back on that Lakeside Park thing, what were some of those concerns that you were looking at? Like, what would have been that issue that could have potentially, if this had, if you weren't lucky to be able to get out to Jack Miner, what What were some of those issues that could have caused it to end up having to be delayed?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking. We were planning on having it at Lakeside Park, but as we got closer to the planning cycle, things were just getting bogged down. The town, I mean, rightly so. They have to they have a different set of rules, and things were just moving very slowly. Let's just put it this way: their management style just doesn't align with ours, and. But with having said that, it was just the right thing to do, just to move it away from the town and do it on our own with another organization.
Doug, you mentioned the grounds and being a perfect fit, and you mentioned parking, and I know there is a lot of roadside parking, but one concern I have heard a couple of times is there going to be enough parking? Is there going to be shuttles, or I mean, do you have access to maybe Jack Minor Public School to provide additional parking? I don't know what the rules are there. How do you address any concerns with that?
You're right, Steve. The boulevard's quite wide from Division all the way down. Not only that, but behind Kennedy Woods, there's a grassed lane. It's a high lane too. It's quite dry. Even if you were to go out there, I was out there today, and it was high and dry. There's 27 acres that's nestled in behind Kennedy Woods. That area alone is big enough to hold the games just itself. So what we plan on doing is having extra golf carts and hopefully a train that will shuttle people back and forth and from their car over to the games itself. So last year, we had a heck of an expense. We hired buses that ran through town, and we had a route set up. So we've eliminated that. That was a $3,000 bill just to provide that. But with the golf carts, I think we can do it. I think there's a lot of area out there.
Okay, and that's perfect then. So then what are we looking at as far as numbers, as far as bands and different events that are going to be included in this year's games?
Last year we suffered. All the festivals, all the Highland Games in Ontario really had a hard time last year. We were just coming out of COVID.
Right.
I had one band that canceled an hour before.
Oh, jeez.
They just said, the whole band has COVID. We're not coming. So sorry. And a lot of bands too, they fell apart because during COVID, we weren't allowed to practice.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine a bagpipe full of hot air, full of stuff that's just blowing up through the top. So anyways, bands didn't practice, and bands just won't perform unless they're ready to go.
Right.
So a lot of our local bands, they just kind of they're just getting together now. A lot of our American bands too decided not to come because of the app. They were afraid of that, and all the restrictions that they had heard that getting back and forth. They just didn't want to go there.
Okay.
So we missed out on about 5 bands, and I have full commitment from those guys. They said, "Yeah, we're coming. We're looking forward to it." So we have bands from Ohio and Michigan coming. It's a little too early to tell just yet how many bands from Ontario will be coming, but I have been talking to a few, and they're looking forward to it as well. So last year was kind of a flop that way, but we did the best we could.
Okay.
A lot of people too. That was a hot day. People just we were just coming out of COVID at the time, and so there was a lot of hesitation. So our attendance was down, but it was not. All the Highland Games, like I said, they complained about the same thing. Our vendors, a lot of vendors, they just aren't around anymore. They didn't survive COVID.
Okay.
So we struggled there too.
Now you mentioned bands sort of falling apart due to COVID, and I get that. A lot of people do. I know a lot of pipe bands, they do parades and stuff, but are Highland Games sort of the real impetus for them to get going again? Is that where the real spark is for a pipe band, games like this?
There's different types of pipe bands. There's bands like the Windsor Police Pipe Band, the Chatham Police Pipe Band, London Firefighters. those bands practice all year for competition, and they do the circuit. Then you have bands like our local Sun Parlor band and a lot of Legion bands, and they just do parades. So the Highland Games is really set up for the competition guys. That's what they strive for. That's what they practice for all year. So you have two types of bands, and we try to attract both. We did open a division for the solo players for quartets, and try to get some people out that way as well.
Okay.
Now, in years past, with dealing with the lower basin of Lakeside Park, there was kind of a little bit of a logistics overlap, let's say, and navigating up the hill, down the hill. Now that you're going to be out at Jack Miner's campus, you got wide open spaces. So, is there anything that you think that maybe this year's games or subsequent games here on in at Jack Miner you may be able to add to the program?
We try to add something every year. Now, this year we're kind of just catching up. So, hopefully next year. Well, I don't really want to.
Don't let the goose out of the bag. Okay.
I don't want to do that just yet. But we have some things up our sleeve. Yeah, that's good. We do have a few things up our sleeve, and hopefully it just to add to the games for next year, just to keep it fresh from year after year.
So I have to ask Doug, because it's been something that we joke about on the podcast fairly regularly. What happened to the tartan?
What happened to the tartan?
Yeah, the
tartan.
The tent. And please correct me if I have this number wrong, because it's been a while. But I think it was about $10,000 worth of tartan fabric that
we had specially designed.
What ended up happening to that?
Oh, we sell kilts.
So that's so it's still in process.
Oh yeah. That tartan was designed and it was registered in Scotland as Kingsville's own. A lot of towns do that. The province of Ontario has their own tartan. A lot of towns have their own tartan, and we have ours. The mayor has just ordered his own tartan. I have a Kingsville tartan, and when people are interested, they just get a hold of me and measure you up, and they can buy a tartan.
So what's a kilt running these days?
Oh well, about $800.
Wow.
And there's other things though that we make out of that fabric. There's sashes and there's hats and there's ties and there's all kinds of things. They'll all be on display and for sale at the games. And they're just putting an online store together too. And we sold a few items for Christmas. So people can go online and order what they like.
And Doug, that follows the games, the ownership of that tartan, or because it's a non-profit, I'm sure that it was probably some form of donation or.
Yeah, and it's the tartan itself is not owned. Anybody that wants to wear it can wear it. There's only one mill in Scotland that makes the fabric, and there's only one company right now that will make the kilt, only because they have the fabric ready to go.
Okay.
Or tie or anything else that you would like. Yeah.
Scottish fashion trends aren't exactly mainstream around here.
They don't seem to be changing.
Oh, they are here.
Well, yeah, when you're talking Highland Games, absolutely. So the other improvement, I think, because again, with the layout at Lakeside Park being up and down the hill, is food and catering services. So, a few years ago, we had a couple. Last year, you added quite a few more vendors. Do we have more that are registered that are going to be on site this June?
We do. We have a lot more of that. Last year, we were kind of stuck because there were some policies that kind of came to light, and vendors were forced to get a vendor's permit, and it was kind of late in the game, and that permit was quite expensive to give vendors the right to actually do business in the town. And that slowed things down. And as I mentioned, COVID as well destroyed a lot of vendors. A lot of vendors just went out of business. Our weekend is the busiest for festivals of any other weekend on the calendar. trying to get a tent, to rent a tent from festival or any other tent companies is almost impossible as well. There's proms, there's graduations, there's all kinds of stuff going on. So these vendors, I mean, they have they have a lot of choice. They have a lot of events that they can choose from. But yeah, this year we're going to have a lot more vendors than last year, and food vendors.
It's exciting,
and hopefully that list will grow.
Yeah. Well, Doug, we want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to discuss it with us. We're excited about the Highland Games.
Absolutely.
Been both years, looking forward to this year and just experiencing, caber toss and all that. It's a great event to have in our little town. So thank you very much for you and your volunteers for taking the time out of your day to help facilitate this for our community.
And Doug, date and tickets.
June 24th. And tickets are available right now. There are early bird tickets on sale for $15. And you can pick those up at the Carnegie Center or out at Jack Miner's. And you can order them online as well. So they'll be available to you as will call at the admission gate at the games.
Well, great. We will see you June 24th at Jack Miner Bird Sanctuary. Thanks again, Doug, for joining us on That Kingsville Podcast.
Okay, and thank you.
All right. Guys, it's Easter weekend. By the time this goes to air,
4 days off.
We'll be eating ham and turkey and whatnot, but
Can't wait.
there was some local news. Just made some Facebook and actually regional news like CTV. And
Was it the mini egg cannolis that are for sale at Leah Maria's?
Why? The shameless plug. Kevin, did you set me up just so you can shamelessly plug your own bullshit? You did. You set
Well,
me up.
I don't know. I
Set me
think
up
for
a
that
shameless
plug, we should get samples at the very least.
Yeah,
you
we're
know what,
If
I'll
you're
see
going
what
to
I
keep
can
plugging,
Yeah,
you're going to keep
no.
plugging this business. It's got to contribute to us in
Not
some way.
because of the cannolis. It was
Contributes to my presence. It wasn't the cannolis.
wasn't the cannolis.
No, that is your present to us. Oh, that presence.
So at Lakeside Park last weekend before Easter, there was a gentleman who was dressed as the Easter Bunny who was taking photos and handing out gift bags at Lakeside Park.
I did see this. Yes.
Right. And the reports on CTV, and I believe it was CBC too.
I know CTV.
I caught it on CTV. Said that the police were called on the Easter Bunny in Kingsville.
So don't go anywhere in an Easter Bunny costume in Kingsville.
Listen, when I was a teenager, I dressed up like a chicken and danced in front of a Swiss chalet. I wasn't arrested. What would cause anyone to call the police on someone dressed up as the Easter Bunny at Easter?
So I wasn't there, so didn't see it happen.
Neither was I.
So the one area where I do think that I would have some concern is if there's a costumed adult approaching my child without talking to me first.
100%.
And I don't know if that's the case. Don't want to assume that it is or accuse anyone of that. But if there's a costumed adult approaching my kids and taking pictures with my kids without asking me first, if that's okay, then that's a problem. I would think, and I don't know if that's a call the police problem. That seems a little extreme, but I'm not comfortable with that. Now, if the gentleman is, going to the parents like, hey, I would like to, talk to your kids and have my picture taken with them as the Easter Bunny, then yeah, that's fine.
Well, let's look at it this way. If I'm at the park with my kids, okay, let's assume they're younger now, but and they're off playing, and then they see what they think is the Easter Bunny, or they see the Easter Bunny. Their initial response is to probably go running over to the Easter Bunny.
I don't know, man. Have you seen Easter Bunny costumes? They're pretty frightening.
Listen, I'm looking. I just pulled up the news report.
Oh, hold on. That's just hypothetically, right?
Yeah. No.
To me, kids, if they see the Easter, it's like they see Santa. They're going to go running to Santa.
Yeah.
They're not going to go say, "Hey, mom, dad." Okay. So then, as a parent, obviously, then you got to be watching your kids. Where are they going? And then you would approach the Easter Bunny. Now, there's a lot that could come into play here. Is Easter Bunny physically touching the child? Because then I would have a problem with that too. But if it's like, hello, I'm the Easter Bunny, or she's, hello, I'm the Easter Bunny, and it's all above board.
Yeah, so from the article, the gentleman's name is Robert Hickey. Apparently he's dressed up as the Grinch as well, too. And he's the guy that we've seen running up and down the sidewalks during the Santa Claus parade and whatnot, and people snapping pictures and whatnot. So, this gentleman likes to do this, and he enjoys that kind of thing. I don't think, and I'm just... as long as what you've described as there was consent among parents, I don't see any problem with that. However, someone did, and there was a town employee that was called and had a discussion with them, and then eventually the OPP. So, are we there? Are we there?
Obviously we are. But here's so then okay. I guess, again, there's a lot to digest here. Is it that the person saw it and they didn't feel comfortable with this person being there, but they didn't know how to handle it? So their reaction was to call the police.
Why not just talk to the guy in the bunny costume
And
first? And be like,
I agree. And that's what I was going to say is, first of all, why don't you find out what's going on here as an adult?
Right.
As an adult, just go up to this individual and say,
Well,
"Excuse me."
and in the story, and we should note that it does say that the town employee did speak with the Easter Bunny.
correct.
And then after
Robert. Let's
Well,
call him Robert.
no, because
right.
we don't want kids to know.
Well, no, because he had to take off the
He
head.
had to take off the head.
I know. I did.
But the town employee did speak with Robert, and then the police were called. I don't know if it's for sure that it's that town employee that called the police. It is according to Robert, and the OPP officer said a town employee did call the police, but it's unclear whether or not it was the same town employee. There are more than one.
No, he's gonna keep it up. He's gonna keep doing it. This is what he likes.
So then that's the interesting part,
Yeah.
right? Because this weekend is the Easter egg
The
hunt.
official town of Kingsville Easter egg hunt at the park.
And can you read the ending of that story? Because I believe it's going to get a little awkward.
Hickey has since been advised by the town of Kingsville officials that he did nothing wrong. Armed with that information, he tells CTV Windsor he will keep dressing up and spreading joy. Hickey hinted that this includes an appearance at this weekend's official Kingsville Easter egg hunt. The event, organized by the town, is Saturday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. at Lakeside Park, and according to the email from the town, the Easter Bunny will be there.
Yeah. So now what?
Easter Bunny
here's
inception.
a couple of quick takeaways. So the town ended up saying that telling him he did nothing wrong after the town really called the cops on him. And I get it.
Did the town call the cops on him, or
Well,
let's
say a town employee did, but if is that
no, it doesn't say that the town called the police.
Robert says that an OPP officer said that they were contacted by a town employee.
Okay, all right.
okay, so
But
this is like third, fourth hand information. However, okay, so another way to look at it would be to simply say, okay, if I'm the town employee and I'm not sure what's going on here, why don't I call my superior or send it up the chain before I call the cops?
Yeah.
Well,
Or
sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
Did this town employee believe that the town of Kingsville had the sole rights to Easter bunnies in Lakeside Park?
we've got a monopoly. I don't know.
can't argue that.
Regardless, it kind of it can go two ways. Like, either we are going to have a gigantic costume parade where everybody dresses up and just runs rampant through the streets. May I suggest like the first open streets? or this is going to completely kibosh anything, including everything at Colasanni's for Santa Claus, because the Easter Bunny's also going to be at Colasanni's.
How many?
I don't know, 90? All the Easter Bunnies?
All of the Easter bunnies?
Much,
Well, I mean, the Easter bunny's got help, right?
of course, much
Yeah,
like,
It's like Santa.
yeah, the elves.
So-
I guess baby bunnies are bunnies.
Try to look for the plural.
Yeah, bunny. But here, and again, this is very much semantics. We're kind of getting off the rails. But Steve, if you saw it and you complained, is it someone from Canada Post complaining? Like, can't the person from the town just be a person? Like, were they there as an official on official
Well, that's
business?
just it. So so here's the thing: is if I'm at Lakeside Park, if I'm walking by Lakeside Park and I'm doing Route 7, which would be along Lakeside Park,
Right.
But if I see this and then I call, then yeah, I'm calling as a Canada Post employee because I'm doing that on company time. But so what I'm suggesting there is if the town employee was
Saturday. It's a Saturday.
They work on weekends, Kevin.
Yeah, but not all of them.
No. Oh my God. Okay, can I finish?
Please.
What I'm saying is that if the town employee is there working at the park and they have identifiable Town of Kingsville shirt on or hat on or something that says, yes, this is a town employee, then yes, they are calling as a town employee. But what I'm saying is if it's Saturday or Sunday and I'm there as Steve Ianson, I am not, it's not a Canada Post. It's just a guy. Same as it would be for you. If you're driving a Lee and Maria's van, you're Lee and Maria's Kevin at that point.
Yeah.
But if you're there with your kids on your own and you make the call, you're a private citizen. And it doesn't say that, which tells me that they must have had something identifying them as a town employee, whether they were driving a town truck or wearing something.
Or they said it.
That would be the obvious too.
And did they react based upon somebody at the park that was concerned and said, "You're from the town, fix this"?
But at the end of the day, the park is a public place, and there's nothing to say you can't wear certain things, and there's nothing to say you can't interact with other people wearing certain things.
Steve, I don't disagree. As long as it's not for like predatory things.
Well, that's
luring,
different.
Right. 100%.
And if you see it as that, then yeah, absolutely call the police. But
because we got kids that are dressing up in schools, right? And like if we want to go if we want to go that far with society, then this guy should be able to dress up like the Easter Bunny and not be bothered.
So at the end of the day, this looks silly on the town of Kingsville. And I don't mean the town as in administration, as in the corporation of the town. I mean, just it looks silly to Kingsville. You could look at it and say it's a waste of police resources and it's a waste of municipal resources because they have to then, a good man like John Norton has to turn around and basically put this fire out, answer the questions and brush it up. And it didn't necessarily have to happen this way. And then we didn't have to talk about it.
It didn't have to be on CTV News.
And that's just it. I don't know why CTV.
I'm just going to say they stretch.
But then again, but actually, but here's the thing that Mr. Hickey must have been the one to contact CTV News because obviously he felt he was wronged. So in that sense, I get why it was on CTV News. This is
100%. The guy probably again had
want to clear his name,
right? And it just looks like
this.
If you don't come out, it looks like guy dressed in bunny suit, luring kids at park, right? If you don't.
And to answer your original question, we are there because. Yeah, I would look at it though too and say it is a little weird that a grown man is in a costume, but again, he wasn't handing out like candy,
Well, it was pencils and
coloring
notepads
or something like that. Yeah.
And if you're a parent and you have your kid there, and that's your obligation to make sure that if you're not comfortable with that arrangement, you don't allow your kid.
Right.
If others
there were parents that were comfortable because it says they were taking pictures with Easter Bunny.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So.
And again, he's done it around town. We've seen
the scene.
Anyway, happy Easter, everyone.
That was fun. That was fun.
Big episode. We're catching up on stuff. We're rolling through this season. A lot of things to talk about. Weather's getting warmer, so
a future episode we have to talk about open streets. I know we had to nail this one down, but
they help.
It's got to be next, right?
It's got to be next.
Next episode.
Open streets. Well, again, happy Easter, everyone.
Do you want to talk about Hogs?
Yeah, let's do it.
We know the one band that's coming for sure, I think. So we're recording this, prior to the announcement. The announcement's coming tomorrow.
We don't have an embargo.
But on social media, it's already been sort of leaked, so we can confirm-ish that Honeymoon Suite apparently is going to be one of the bands that's going to be playing. Usually they have a rock and a country night, and don't know the country night yet.
Well, hey,
Honeymoon Suite,
Hogs again, big event in the area.
I was trying to remember, do I know Honeymoon Suite when I saw it, and then I brought them up in Spotify. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I know that song. Yeah, I know that song. All right, okay.
Just not top of mind.
Yeah.
They're from the 80s, so that's what it is. Happy Easter, everyone, from the team here. Thank you, Gary Glass, for production of yet another stellar episode of That Kingsville Podcast. We appreciate everyone. Please like, subscribe. It is helping. People are seeing. And just wanted to say, a lot of people really happy to see Gord Queen on our episode. Had several people just say, hey, you know, it was great to get some of his insight and some of his stories. So thanks, Gord, again, for coming on the show, if you're listening at this point of this episode. But, you know, just
long by this point. So if you're not, I mean,
I get it. So join us next time on That Kingsville Podcast.